Good morning. Welcome to the Legacy Changemaker broadcast. We are here to celebrate, connect, and inspire changemakers to take action towards a more peaceful, prosperous, people and planet centered world. My name is Biliana, and I'm going to be your host. If you want to know more about Legacy Changemaker, please do visit our website. So, once again, welcome. And on that note, let me introduce to you our very first changemaker. Her name is Jess Hackett. She has extensive experience in introducing change inside the wealth management industry. Hello, Jessica, and welcome. Do you hear me?
Yes, good morning, Biliana.
How are you today?
Good, thank you.
Perfect. So, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and why did you accept to be our first speaker?
Yeah. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Early start here in Switzerland. So I'm from the UK originally. I have lived in Geneva for 4 years now, and also had lived in Zurich for almost as long. I love to travel. I love to read. I love to explore. For me, there's nothing more energizing than being outside, whether it's skiing, whether it's hiking. I love walking up a mountain in the sunshine, getting to the top, and then realizing how small and insignificant I am in the world. But also, I'm curious. I like to learn. I like to understand how things work, if things can be better, if we can do things differently. I like variety and I like change. And I think it's important to know how we each react to change because some people, change is their worst nightmare. They would like everything to stay the same. And if we're making change, you need to know how people feel about it. Um, Professionally, I've worked in the wealth management industry for over 20 years, or sorry, nearly 20 years, aging myself there. I have worked as a CEO, as a lawyer, as a trustee, as a family office advisor, so in many different parts of the industry. But I've also been a volunteer, I've been a board advisor, I've been a committee member in startups and not for profits. So that's me and the experiences I bring to this talk. Why did I why did I say yes? It's because I really believe that we all have a part to play in making the world more peaceful, prosperous, and people orientated. In particular, I believe businesses and organizations need to be more people focused. I believe organizations are more successful when you get behind the brand, when you get behind that corporate image and you really understand the people making it happen, but also those people feel engaged and part of what's happening. And I'll talk about some of the changes I have made to try and facilitate that in organizations I've been part of. Um, I'll talk about some of the changes I haven't made, some of the things I've not been successful at, but also I want to empower and encourage other change makers who are listening or others who are listening and thinking, am I a change maker? Can I be a change maker? And to celebrate the changes that people are already making.
Beautiful. Uh, and as our audience knows, the title you chose a very interesting title for your presentation, and the title is "Am I a Change Maker?" So, can you please tell us why did you choose this title?
Yeah, so when I was asked to speak, my first reaction was I was flattered. Yes, I'd love to. But then the next thought was, well, am I a change maker? Am I qualified to speak on this topic? And then the reaction after that was the lawyer in me kicking in. And being a lawyer can be a blessing and a curse. And I thought, what's the definition of a change maker? Do I meet that definition? And the definition of a change maker for me, the literal definition is someone who makes a positive impact on society. And I, in my mind, was taking that very literally that I have to impact the whole of society, that I can only be a change maker if the changes I am making are big. But then I started and I thought, well, I haven't done that, or at least not yet. It could still be to come. And then I thought about the changes I have made, sort of those changes in organizations and things I do that have had a positive impact on at least one person. And then I started to feel bolder and thought, well, maybe I am a change maker, and maybe people might be interested in what I have to say, but also perhaps I can connect with those people who, like me, aren't sure whether what they're doing is enough to be a change maker. And I would say, yes, it is. If you can think of one thing that has impacted um, somebody positively, then you are a change maker. And for me, being a change maker is actually, it's more about a mindset. It's not about meeting a strict definition. Are you somebody who can see where change needs to be made, who can start to understand, is curious to understand why change is needed, what that change could look like, that you believe that change is possible, particularly positive change, and then you try and you start, and maybe you fail, maybe it doesn't all work along the way, and some of those different aspects don't happen, but you're still a change maker. You're going in with that mindset that it is possible to make change. And as I prepared for this talk, the more I thought, I want to be a change maker. And actually, if I can talk about these experiences, maybe other people will see me as a change maker as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. So, can you please talk a little bit the experiences that you've had in your professional career and what has influenced the changes you've brought about?
Yeah, I, I think there are three things in particular that have influenced the changes I've made. I think firstly, it's my personal feelings and values. That's had a big influence. My experience as a girl guide, and my practical hands-on approach. I think in summary, they're the three main things. So for me, when I go into a situation where I might make change or change comes, I always think about how am I feeling, or how would I feel if I'm in that situation? What are my values? How does this sit with my values? And this can be very powerful, sort of this internal drive, these internal personal feelings. But you also have to be careful, because just because I'm thinking that or might feel like that doesn't mean that everyone else would in that situation. So it's a really good place to start, but it's to start exploring how others would feel. Would others want change? And actually, if you're in an organization and you're the only one who wants change, then maybe it's not the right organization or it's not the right time. And I've had that experience. Um, and I have to say that's particularly relevant for me in the private wealth industry, is that I love having the exposure to different people, different families, hearing the stories about how they've made their wealth, the struggles they've had as a family, growing that wealth or once gaining that wealth. But whilst I had that interest, I also felt a personal discomfort that so much of the wealth industry was around maximizing returns. What I realized is, with this personal discomfort, what I started to do was to find ways I could get a balance. So I started to volunteer more, I started to um, spend time with organizations I felt were making a positive contribution. What I didn't do until quite recently was start to think, actually, how can I explore these feelings to see how other people are feeling? Actually, are there ways we can bring change to the industry as a whole, rather than me just dealing with my personal feelings? So I think that those personal feelings and values are a really good starting place to then jump on and explore whether change is needed and what it might look like. Another area that's influenced my change, as I mentioned, was um, my experience as a member of Girl Guiding. So, depending on which country you're in, Girl Guides, Girl Scouts, Scouting, I've been a member since the age of 7. And for me, this was a place that I had a safe space to try and solve problems, to try new things, to experiment, to be hands on, um, to work collaboratively with people from different backgrounds, different cultures, to hear different ideas and opinions with a real focus on working as a team, and to develop my own leadership style. And that again is a collaborative style. It is inclusive. It's learning from experiences. It's being able to learn from failures as well. And it's these practical experiences which really affect how I lead, how I make changes today. I think finally, it's my hands-on and practical nature. Um, when it comes to thinking about change, I start to think about solutions. Sometimes that's a problem. I can jump into trying to find the solution, the change too quickly without understanding, but I'm always thinking, how do we make this come to life? How can we make the change happen? Sometimes it can also be limiting because I start to think, I can't go too big. If I go big, I get overwhelmed by the details that I need to do. But what I do find is it moves me in from talking and thinking to actually doing and starting to make change. So I think they're the parts that have influenced the changes that I've made.
I love how you bring together the heart, the mind, and the hands in your approach to change. And I really love how you connected the non-for-profit industry together with the wealth management industry, and how you really shared with us that you felt much more comfortable with introducing change inside the non-for-profit, while not so comfortable introducing change inside the wealth management industry. But as I know you now, you have managed to introduce some changes inside the wealth management industry. So can you please share with our listeners today and viewers, what are the successful changes you've managed to introduce?
Yeah. So in the roles that I've gone into, in my professional roles, I've always gone into organizations wanting to make them more people focused, making sure that people understood the role they played in the organizations, making sure people know that why the organization exists, what it's there to do, having transparent decision making processes, improving communication, developing collaboration. Some of these successful changes aren't sexy, they're not sort of interesting processes and decision making. But actually, for me, by having strength in those areas, that's how you can empower others to be involved in change. That's how others can be part of the process as we go along. And and one example for me in the last organization I worked in is that on our website we had our company values. We could say what they were, but in reality we didn't really bring them to life. Um, if anyone asked us, we'd probably have to go on the website and check what they were. And as part of what we did was to refresh these values and say, do these reflect the organization that we are part of today? And the first place we started actually was by asking everyone in the business, what values represent us as a business? What values do you bring to work when you are working with our clients every day, when you are doing your part, your contribution? Um, and we had a number of contributions, not everybody, but a number of people contributed. And there, whilst the words were not exactly the same, there were really strong themes that came through from everybody that contributed. And we use these contributions to then update the values of the business. We then started to bring them to life. So we made sure everyone knew what they were, we made sure they were displayed, but we also asked people to talk about how they were bringing them to life, both with clients or within the business, um, and asking them to bring those examples forward so that slowly those values came to life. And it started to show team members the role that they play in making the business what it is, that they have personality, they have contribution, and they can live it. And they can also be proud of the contribution that they're making. So we started to see staff engagement improve as a result of that process. Um, Also within that same organization, I, I mean, in general, in any organization, I believe that diversity is a strength. Being able to have different views, different opinions from different people's experiences can only make an organization stronger. And I felt that was something we lacked at board level. And so I raised this with the CEO at the time. And when he said, well, how can we solve this? I had some ideas. I had some potential people who could join the board to add different perspectives. I also highlighted how diverse our client base was, that actually, if we wanted to make sure we were meeting the needs of the client, we needed to have those different perspectives. Um, and we, over time, it didn't happen overnight, but over time, we were able to add people with different experiences to the board. We had somebody from a different gender, we had somebody from a different commercial background. And what was really interesting to me, and I think shows its success, was not only that the contributions in the meetings were different, that those people brought a different perspective, asked different questions, shared different experiences, but we started to put different items onto the board agenda. So actually, the change was also coming from the organisers as well. We started to think, how can we use those experiences? How are we making sure that we're building this in? So really, the change there came from two different sides. I think, and perhaps one final example of in a voluntary capacity of a change I made, but again, it comes down to people and it comes down to processes, which I say is not always exciting when it comes to change, but it shows the potential impact it can have. Is I joined an organization as a volunteer in Zurich. It was an organization that had a focus on believing world change begins with educated children. And that for me is really exciting. I'm a big believer in the power of education, and I wanted to contribute, but I didn't know how I could. And I joined this organization, everyone was very friendly, but I then just felt a bit useless. I wasn't doing anything, I wasn't making a contribution. So I said, after not too long, how can we change this? And then I proposed the role of a volunteer coordinator. So, and then going back to my practical nature, I then took on that role. And actually, what that meant was, as new volunteers came in, I welcomed them. I had briefings with groups of new volunteers. We gave them ideas of ways they could get involved, but we also asked their interests and their skills so we could find matches. And what we started to see in quite a short period of time was the number of volunteers increased. We had more fundraising events taking place, and actually, we raised more funds. So it was just one way of a small change from my personal experience had an impact on what the organization achieved.
Thank you. I love how you brought a bit earlier the need of working and being driven by the values that organization wants to portray in the world. And I love how you also brought the topic of your own values and how you acted upon your own values to bring about what needed to be done. Because very often we go, or at least let me talk about myself, I go straight into the judging mode of I use my values much more for decision making than for action based, to base my action upon them. So I really love how you really brought the need to act upon the values we want to bring into the world, not only to decide and again judge upon them, which is absolutely necessary. We need to make decisions, and even better if those decisions are based on intentionally chosen values. And speaking about judging, can you share with us some of the changes that have not been so successful and what have you learned from them?
Yeah. And actually, it was much easier to think of the failures than it was to think of the successes when preparing for this. And I think we have to say change is hard. To make change that has a positive impact, that's long lasting, it's difficult. And we have to be patient. But what I've realized in my years in working in the private wealth industry is that I've wanted to make change. However, I've not clearly articulated it. So
Mm,
these feelings of discomfort, these feelings of there should be more than just maximizing returns. I have not clearly said that. I've not clearly said I want to change it. I know how to change it. Um, and I think it's not possible to make a change if you don't know what you're aiming for. And so I think for me, articulating the change is one of the lessons I've learned. Um, when we look at the wealth management industry, there are billions of francs under management in Switzerland alone, and the industry is based on making more money. That's how individuals' performance is judged. That's how businesses' performance is judged. It's all about growing the amount of money that's made. And there are not many advisors who actually stop and say, are my clients happy with their wealth? Is there a connection with their mental state and how much money they have or what their money is doing for them? And that's something that I would like to change within an organization. I have been thinking about it, but actually I haven't really been able to drive that change. And I think part of it is my own insecurity, that I feel this is a gut feeling. This is sort of an emotional connection between money and happiness and um, what people can achieve with their life. This is something that the industry can influence. But can I prove that there's a commercial connection to this? Can I prove that the business will do better if we can bring these emotions in? And I think I was always quite worried that I wouldn't be able to um, get people to support me in that idea. I think one thing I failed to do was to talk about this enough, because actually now as I talk about it more, I find more people in the industry who agree with me, who would like to see more interaction, um, that not just being focused on financial returns, looking at other ways that wealth can be used to make a contribution to individuals, to family, to society. So that was definitely a mistake, was not clearly articulating what I wanted to achieve, not building community around me, not finding those who supported me and had similar feelings, and not experimenting enough, not perhaps finding a few clients where it could work with clients who knew they were open to these ideas. How asking them, what do they want? How could this work for them? Actually creating the solution from the client perspective. I think often there's a fear of upsetting a client or losing a client because you've not um, met their needs. But actually, if you've really not explored what they need beyond their wealth, how can you know whether you are meeting them? So I think there was a lot of things there of being scared of failure, being uncertain, um, not knowing whether it would be supported.
thank you very much for opening your heart and for sharing those insecurities and those feelings so openly. Because one of the reasons for being for this channel is to support one another, to create a community where change makers can help each other and can inspire. So, on that note, I'm sure there are some young change makers or maybe young at heart change makers who would like to who are just starting on their change making journey. What words of advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I think I have a lot, and it is all based from my experience. Um, so I think the first point that I said I failed to do is articulate the change you want to make. Define it so you're clear what you're trying to do. And that might change over time. It doesn't have to stay the same, but be clear so that when you're then making decisions, you can come back to it every time and say, if I do this, is this helping with the change? Um, you can keep coming back to it every time. And over time, you can also look and see what progress you've made. I think that community, I think we're doing here with this community we're building, that having a community of like-minded people, being able to talk to others, to find the right language, to find the words, to learn, to build the confidence, so that you know how you go forward. But also find the people that are going to challenge you. They might not stay within your community, but actually that's how you broaden your thinking. That's how you understand the challenges that people are going to come to you with, so that you can find the answer, whether it be a commercial answer or a different way of doing things. So build the community of like-minded people, but also talk to those who think differently. Also identify your stakeholders. Who are the people who are going to be affected by your change? Who are the people who will affect your change? And start to work with them. You need to build trust with them so that they can be part of this journey along the way. And you need to listen to them. And I think listening is such an underrated skill. We're often so keen to drive the solution and find the answer that we can sometimes jump over that stage. And it's amazing what you can pick up between what people are saying and what they're not saying that can really add value to the change that you're trying to bring. And then prioritize. I think that's the other part. And for me, I think so much of what I'm saying is the same, applies to running a business just as it does to making change. And you only have so much time, you only have so much energy. What is it that really will make a difference, and focus your energy on that? I think historically, I have often done the parts which are easy, which are quick, which I feel comfortable doing, and I feel busy and I feel like I'm working towards my change and I'm doing something, but actually I'm not. I'm just being busy. Whereas tackling those difficult parts, tackling the elements that will have the biggest impact, is where you should be putting those energies. And I think be patient. It takes time. Be realistic. You can't, if you're trying to change something that affects a big number of people or has been in place for a number of years, you're not going to come along and change it in a few weeks, possibly not a few months, or maybe not even a few years. So keep working at it, be patient, and celebrate the wins that you have along the way.
On that note, what is your future as a change maker, Jess?
Yeah. So I really feel that I'm finding my voice as a change maker, and I really, it feels comfortable and I enjoy it. So I want to start being more strategic. I want to start taking the advice that I've just been talking about myself and applying that more myself, to take a longer term view to see how we can change the wealth management industry. I'm talking with people already around finding those community, those like-minded people, thinking about how we can make that difference. Who is it that we need to engage with to make some of these changes? What might some of these changes look like? Is there a framework we can use? So trying to build in that, make that change happen. In particular, I'd like to be working with businesses which have purpose sort of at their heart, that they're not purely driven by maximizing profits themselves, but also that bring change, that do something else in the world. And I'd like to be part of helping them strengthen, help them grow. I'd also like to empower other change makers. I would like other people who think in this way, that things can be done differently, to really encourage and support them in making their changes.
We have a comment from Olesia on LinkedIn. She says, being busy versus making changes, 100% smiley face and another. So she really agrees this, she heard you mentioning that. So thank you very much, Olesia, for your comment. My next question is a little bit of a challenge. You said it's really important to articulate your change, right?
Yes.
So can I invite you now to articulate the change you want to bring into the world starting today?
Yeah.
In one sentence.
Yes, that is a challenge. Um, so I want to bring people and emotion to the private wealth industry to create a community of responsible wealth generators. And I think there's lots that can be unpacked in there, but that would be the succinct. What do we mean by responsible wealth? There's so many different angles into what you're investing, how you use your money, what you use your impact, but that's all part of it. So yes, create a community of responsible wealth generators, both those who own the money and those who advise them and those who assist them.
Amazing. I got goosebumps all over. So, on that note, what is your call to action to those out there who are listening?
Yeah, so for those who are in there and who are listening, I think anyone who is interested in being part of a community or knows someone who works in that industry who might be interested, I think connect with me on LinkedIn, reach out to me, come and be part of that community building. I can see that Michaela has sent me a helpful resource as well, and so I'm looking into that. And I think that's it. It's sharing information, connecting people. So if you or someone you know you think would be interested in being part of this change, connect with me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We are coming to the end of this conversation. I would like to kind of talk a little bit to what is the process of choosing and featuring Changemaker. I chose Jessica because she inspired me with all the things she has done in the last 3 years. But now I'm no longer going to choose. Now I'm going to invite the person who Jessica was inspired by. And in our previous conversation, she gave me the name of Katie Button. And Katie Button, it has been an inspiration for her. So next Friday at 8 o'clock, you will be able to listen to Katie Button and what is the change that she has brought to the world. I think this is it, Jess.
Yes. Or would you like me to say what's inspired me about Katie very
That
briefly
would be
so that
lovely,
others?
please.
So, I mean, Katie is a co-founder of an environmental consultancy called Interconnected, and her passion, her energy, and her determination to bring about change is what's inspired me. She lives the change that she wants to see, and she probably breathes, sleeps, and drinks it. It really is everything a part of her, and I find that amazing that she is interconnected. Their ambition is to mobilize businesses to play their part in the fight against climate change and ecological collapse. So I know how exhausting it can be to bring about change, and her energy and passion is relentless.
So it has been a real pleasure. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jess. Thank you, Olesia. Thank you, Michaela. Thank you, everybody out there who has been listening to us. The recording will be posted on our website together, as well as on our YouTube channel. So have a lovely day. Enjoy yourself. Keep on bringing about the change, and join us next Friday at 8 o'clock Central Eastern Summer Time, Central European Summer Time. Thank you so much.